Is it true that eating too much salt is blamed for 10,000 deaths across Europe? And is it true that it may increase the risk of stomach cancer by 40%? Well, let's dive into it. I love the topic of salt. Nutritionists from the Center for Public Health at the University of Vienna discovered that people from the UK who added salt to most of their meals were 41% more likely to develop stomach cancer than those who didn't. Previous studies in China, Japan, and Korea have linked a salty diet to stomach cancer, but this is one of the first to show the link in Westerners. Though the Austrian study was merely observational, imagine that, older studies have suggested that excess salt might erode the protective coating on the stomach, causing damage to the tissues there and leading to cancerous mutations. The FDA, what do they recommend? They recommend you eat no more than 2,300 milligrams of sodium daily. That's about 1 teaspoon of table salt. And then they go on to say, but because many foods contain more salt than people realize, and because they like to add salt on top of that, the average American gets about 3,400 milligrams daily. And then, for example, let's look at processed foods, right? Campbell's chicken noodle soup. Here you are thinking you're eating a healthy soup, contains 890 milligrams of salt. In another study, the World Health Organization found 52 of the 53 countries in Europe consuming too much salt, and they're claiming that eating too much salt is the main cause of raised blood pressure, which increases the risk of heart attack and stroke, which has exploded over the last 4 years. So people are probably thinking, oh man, I'm at risk. I need to lower my salt intake. High blood pressure is the leading risk factor for death and disability in Europe, causing almost a quarter of deaths and 13% disability. So what has changed? Let's look at this. First, I want to talk about my son, the age of 15. His heart was stopping, okay? He was pounding on his chest to get it going again. He was an athlete. He was working out 4 hours a day. Why did his heart stop? Well, one practitioner wrongly told us to get him off salt. So we did a no salt diet, the poor kid, and I should be in jail for that. So what happened to his blood levels of sodium? They didn't change. Why did his blood levels not change when he lowered his salt to nothing? Because the body is smart. It knows if you're not taking in salt, if you're not taking in what it needs, it will hold on to every little piece you get. So then when we were smart and realized his heart was stopping because he had a lack of electrolytes, not enough potassium, not enough sodium, when he started taking it in freely in the proper amounts from the proper salts, his blood levels never changed because his body said, oh, now I'm getting plenty of it. I can let it go if I want. So that is not the issue. What they are not looking at is what has changed in our diets and what is delivering the salt. Most people with heart disease are getting their salt from processed foods. Processed foods make up about 70% of the standard American diet. What's in processed foods besides sodium filled with microplastics and toxins? You have the rancid, toxic seed oils that are unstable, causing inflammation and oxidative stress. That's in your heart as well, and causing ulcers and stomach issues. And then they add in the sugars and the high fructose corn syrup, driving up blood sugar and insulin resistance. Then you got the GMOs and the glyphosate, and gluten is delivering even more glyphosate. It's like a time bomb going off in your body. So we've talked about insulin resistance and how it's not just from sugar. It is from the radiation, the toxins, the food, the air, all of these toxins our body is dealing with. Our cells are filled with all of these toxins. So when the insulin tries to bring glucose into the cell, it's overstuffed, it's overfat, and it says, nope, keep knocking, but you got to go the other direction. And it causes insulin resistance. So yes, sugar can be a part of that, but eating a piece of fruit or having a potato or having a complete salt with all the minerals, not just sodium and not with the microplastics, it's not going to cause diabetes or heart disease. It is the refined sugars and carbohydrates combined with these toxic ingredients and the sodium full of microplastics that are driving up insulin resistance. And what is heart disease? It's insulin resistance at the level of the heart. What is diabetes? It's insulin resistance at the level of the liver. Since the 1980s, processed foods have increased significantly and now represent, like I said, 70% of the Western diet. That includes these organic, low-carb protein bars. That's processed foods. So who benefits from these low-salt diets? Well, the sale of statin drugs and diabetic pharmaceutical drugs have skyrocketed when they started implementing the guidance for low-salt diets. Coincidence? I don't know. Low salt and no salt diets create unnecessary challenges with cholesterol and blood sugar and compromise the function of the cellular wall and the sodium-potassium pump. Since the sodium-potassium pump drives nutrients into the cells and takes the toxins out of the cells through the cellular wall of each of the 100 trillion cells in our body, we need to understand salt and the importance of trace minerals. And remember, there's a connection between salt and iodine. And I always talk about the importance of iodine. That cell membrane has an iodolipid value. What does that represent? Iodine, lipid, fat. Iodine and fat. So you need both for those cell walls. We need salt. Animals will walk miles to lick the rock with salt. I used to have horses and we would give them salt blocks, right? Farmers used to take salt tablets when they were working in the field. If you go to the emergency room for trauma, what do they put in you? An IV of salt or saline. There are only 5 grams of glucose in your blood at one time. There's 16 grams of sodium in your bloodstream. Sugar is driving high blood pressure and heart disease, not sodium. The kidneys will retain salt when you eat a high-carb diet, especially processed foods, just with that stripped sodium without the complete salt, right? When you're on a ketogenic or a low-carb diet, your kidneys release sodium and potassium. We lose about 2 teaspoons of salt with 4 cups of coffee. Other things that make you lose salt: exercise, hot weather, low-carb diet, and the high use of your brain or mental function. So if you're studying for finals, if you've got a big test, if you've got a big project, you're using up more salt. It's connected to your adrenals. So once you get on some type of low-carb diet, most people correct their high blood pressure because the body lets go of the salt or the sodium. So table salt is stored in mounds of salt domes to dry in the sun while collecting seagulls and other bird droppings. So you wonder what you're taking in other than that sodium in that table salt, right? The raw ancient seabed salts, the way God intended it, is different. That is full of all the minerals. It has a chemical structure of sodium chloride plus the other valuable trace minerals. Table salt, stripped of that, it's sodium chloride only, and it's probably full of microplastics. In a study that they did of 39 salts, 36 of them were full of microplastics. And although iodine, another mineral missing in table salt, is added to some table salts, it's really not anymore. It is not enough. So you do need iodine separate from salt. No study shows that lowering salt causes an increase in heart failure or mortality rate. In fact, lowering salt in your diet can increase all-cause mortality. Most people with a risk of heart disease are already on medication that is a diuretic, ridding the body of salt and making the blood like molasses. So it slows down the heart pressure, but it actually makes your heart work harder. Think about water versus molasses, right? Then so then 1 out of 4 people usually have low sodium in the blood. Then the diuretics can't work. This results in large retention of fluid to salt ratio because the body's not able to pump that thick molasses around the body. So what happens if you don't have enough salt? Your body will literally pull magnesium, calcium, sodium, and potassium from the bones to trick your body into thinking you have enough magnesium and calcium. And then you will actually stop absorbing those those minerals even more. So to conserve more sodium, your body's going to sweat out more magnesium and calcium. This is what was going on with my son. I honestly feel so bad, and we should go to therapy over it. Aldosterone is one of the stress hormones that increases when you kick out magnesium in your urine. Low salt diets can lead to a 5% higher heart rate and only an insignificant 1% reduction in blood pressure. This harms everybody. Okay, low salt increases stress hormones, and that will stiffen your arteries. Low salt increases chronic hypertension, and low salt diets can lead to insulin resistance and worsen diabetes. And on the other hand, increasing salt may rival the same results that you can get from metformin in lowering your blood sugar. Is salt nature's Ozempic, right? Maybe it's not berberine, maybe it is salt. Low salt increases your triglycerides, and your body controls your salt intake. It's called the salt thermometer. When you don't get enough salt, sugar and drugs like Adderall or cocaine will hijack your salt gauge. That's why you have sugar cravings when you actually are low salt. So it is something to really think about when you're getting those cravings. What are symptoms to look for if you're sodium deficient? You go from a seated to standing position, you get dizzy. You have muscle cramps, muscle spasms, exercise fatigue. So how much salt should you have? We're told no more than 2 grams a day, but we really need 3 to 6 grams of sodium a day, which equates to about 1.5 to 1 3/4 teaspoons of salt a day. And during exercise, you lose about 1/2 to 1 teaspoon of salt per hour of exercise. So you got to think about what your routine is. Are you in the sauna? Are you working out hard? People, when they preload with salt, it allows you to exercise 21 minutes longer before you get fatigued. There's no pre-workout drink that works like that. So what salt do you look for? And I've done tons of podcasts on this. And so go back and Google salt and SaraBanta. The number one salt is the accelerated ancient salt. And for those who are not into their health, they cannot stay away from the salt because it tastes amazing, because it doesn't have the bird droppings, the explosions, the microplastics in it, but we take it to another level. So it's full of 62 minerals, so you're getting the full package, the way God intended salt to be. But then we enhance it with scalar frequencies. It has a strong negative charge to help pull out those positively charged toxins, parasites, and undigested fats. If you're trying to intermittent fast and you want to suppress your appetite, put a little accelerated ancient salt on your tongue. If you are nauseous and you've got gallbladder issues, or you're just nauseous and sick, or you're pregnant and you're nauseous, just put a little salt on your tongue. It will help. It is pure, raw, unbleached, unheated, unrefined, ancient seabed sea salt, and it's from the Himalayas, the Andes, and Utah, and no salt is like it. It is scalar charged to further enhance its frequency, and we use quantum mechanics to do that. So hopefully that was helpful. Don't stop the salt. Stop the processed foods. Start eating whole foods. And you can use my accelerated food guide to see which foods to work for your system. If you have edema or inflammation or brain fog or gut issues or unexplained weight gain, my accelerated food guide will guide you into how to get rid of all of those symptoms. Thanks for tuning in today. If you need my help with your health concerns, don't know where to start, just reach out to me through the website, SaraBantaHealth.com. Happy to put together a protocol for you, and join my free group coaching on Telegram. There's no downside. I share my daily tips and tools to improve your health and answer your questions. You will be surrounded by a community of people who are on the same path as you. There's more information on my website, SaraBantaHealth.com. Don't forget to follow me on social media, Accelerated Health Products, and you can catch this podcast on over 100 platforms, including Spotify, iTunes, and iHeartRadio. I'm on a mission. I need your help to share my healing message with everyone who's ready to listen. Share this podcast with a few of your friends who may benefit. Thanks again for joining me. And you can also use coupon WELCOME10 to get 10% off your first order. Have a great week.